What's going on, guys? Welcome to TK's Garage 405. Today, I'm going to be back working on my 2015 Silverado. Kind of get to what's been going on with it lately, what the problems have been, and what I've kind of done to resolve it, and kind of band-aid fix some of the problems and created some other problems that didn't really exist before. So, as always, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, share me around on social media, TK's Garage 405 on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. So let's get to it. What's going on, guys? So you can see I got my truck out here. I actually took it to a shop, so I just was getting so frustrated with my other truck over there that I just bought, and I'm scared I'm going to get stranded with it before it gets fixed. So I actually started calling around, and I was trying to find somebody to engine swap this thing, and nobody could do it. And I'm like, man, it still runs fine. I know I could use it for a while longer before I take a chance on that, and maybe it's smarter to figure out what's going on with it anyway. So I took it down to a shop in town here. Super cool guy. He tried to cut the cats out of it just so we could rule that out of the equation, even though they're pretty much brand new. But he couldn't lift it high enough on his hoist with the camper on it, and it's like a nightmare to take this camper off of it. So found another shop. They're out in Van Buren there. Anyways, long story short here, I took it to them and they cut the cats out. I drove it home, and the fuel mileage and everything is like back to normal. It's driving like it's, you couldn't even drive it before 5 minutes and the manifolds would be glowing red hot. So when I got home, I thought, well, maybe with all that heat in the chambers there, it burnt up a spark plug. So I ended up because it was kind of misfiring on the way back there if you got on under heavy throttle. So I thought, well, what else could it really be now at this point? So they did cut the cats out. They cut the two cats out in the front and the one back one. They said that back one was actually the worst. To me, the front ones look kind of clogged. It's hard to say. He wasn't sure. He said, like, usually when you can see through them, they're still okay, but they're almost new, right? So, but whatever. Anyways, so when I got back here, I thought I'm going to start pulling spark plugs. So I pulled the first spark plug. So I guess it'd be like number 2 spark plug on the passenger side there. I pulled that one out first. And then after I did that, it was like perfect pretty much. Actually, it's still out. I can, oh no, sorry, I threw it back in already. But anyways, so I checked that, everything was perfect on it. So the next step after that was I put the code scanner on I had bought for my other truck, and it ran a couple codes. So the codes that it came up with here, let me just read it off my other one. P308, which is cylinder 8 misfire detected, and then the P0324 code, which is knock control system error. So I'm assuming the knock control is because of the cylinder 8 misfire there. That's what it kind of seemed like. So I'll show you. I decided to pull the number 8 one out there. Well, here's what you got there. So let me show you that. Okay, so when I went to pull the boot off, I couldn't see this part of it. It's actually, even right now, it's like still like melty, but this piece was left on it. Obviously it's bad. I'm gonna pull the plug just to see anyways. It's super hard to get at the back one, but I mean, not super hard, but like the hardest one of all of them. But yeah, so I'm going to check a couple other ones, because so I think what happened was when those manifolds got scorching hot there, you guys saw that if you follow me, those manifolds got just beat red hot from those cats being plugged up. I think that's what kind of happened there. It got so hot, so I'm worried about the other ones now. So probably just gonna buy a set of 8. I might not change them all, but I might just take them with me in case I do have trouble. hoping to take this thing on a trip here right away. So I'm gonna check a couple more. Maybe I'll check the one straight across from it and see if that one's like melted or not. But yeah, hopefully that is all of the problem here. I don't want to have to go down any more other rabbit holes, but otherwise it seemed like it was running good, because before I even took it over there, like I told you guys, it was getting like 4 miles per gallon. Even on the way over there, it was still doing the same thing. And on the way home, it was back up to like 14, 15, 16, 17 on the interstate there. So I purposely took it on the interstate to see if it would have any issues, and obviously that's what was going on. So I showed you guys this the first time I changed these not that long ago. I forgot to put these back on it as I was doing it, so don't make that mistake if you're changing your plugs. But so anyways, I'm gonna throw some new plug wires on it, probably just one, unless there's other ones bad, and then we'll see from there. Hopefully that fixes both of those codes. So if you are trying to chase down these codes, typically, like, this was an abnormal situation because these manifolds had gotten so hot. But I mean, if your manifolds are getting hot, that's a pretty common sign of your catalytic converters being plugged. But you know, typically if you're looking for those codes or whatever, if you were trying to find the resolve, I guess, if you had like a cylinder 8 code like I did there, I think the resolve for that would be to, you know, if you wanted to try the cheap way, it's typically going to be something like, if it's not, like, you could compression test it, make sure there's not a cylinder down or something. But if it's not that, you could take like a coil from, say, if it was number 8 doing the misfire, you could take it and switch it with, say, like number 7 or something like that, or the one beside it or whatever. You could switch it, start it, see if the code changes. You're going to need a code scanner to be able to figure this stuff out, but that'll kind of give you an idea of where the problem may lie for you there. So but you know, and like I say, if you think it's like a plug wire or something, you could always pull it off and switch it around with the one beside it as well, or whatever. So that way you don't have to spend money until you've kind of narrowed down the problem. And yeah, that's kind of the bulk of the problems there. It's either going to be, typically, unless there's a wiring issue, it's going to be a spark plug, a plug wire, or a coil. So that's the common codes for that. Like I said, my situation here was a little bit abnormal because it melted the wires because of the hot manifolds. And that could be something, if you ever have this exact same situation there, that could be something that happens to you. So it's worth checking. So I think when I get home, I'm going to finish changing the rest of the wires just so I can roll that out. But yeah. Okay, so you guys have seen this thing lots in the past. It's been on the channel quite a few times here. This thing has a pile of miles on it. It's actually at 432,000 miles on the original engine now. I've had little hiccups with it. It's overheated like 4 or 5 times there. Just some little things that was nothing to do with the actual truck itself. It was like faulty aftermarket parts, leaking water pump, bad radiator, had a transmission go bad in it because of the aftermarket radiator. It was a brand new transmission, and the aftermarket radiator started leaking antifreeze into the transmission. So that was that there. So there's been some problems with it that way. But so I kind of give you a breakdown of where it's been. I just have been anticipating things would be eventually. I thought at like 300,000 miles, I was expecting the engine to pretty much be either worn out so bad it would have no power, or just running, or break a rod or something like that, right? But I just never expected it to go that much further. So it got to about, I think it was just a little over 400,000 miles there. And it really, to be honest, for the most part, it really hadn't costed me any money. And so I was towing with it one day there, and at wide open throttle as it was pulling a hill, this thing always gets up to like 6,000 or whatever RPM. If it's like either engine braking, it'll go up to like over 5 for sure. And if it's wide open up the hills or whatever, it'll brake to the red line, right? So it was kind of doing that, and then when it hit like wide open throttle there, it was just like a tiniest little bit of a sputter. And so it started kind of getting more noticeable that trip there, and I thought, well, you know what, this thing hasn't really given me any real trouble, to be honest. I was like, I guess it's got this many miles that it's still running fine. So the first thing I did when I got home, I put brand new spark plugs and wires in it, thinking maybe that was just the problem. And actually I thought I had actually resolved the problem, because number 2 plug, I believe it was there, was pretty much gone. But the crazy part was they were original, and the rest of them were like, and you saw that in my other video, the rest of them were just like, you had just put them in. It was like, it looked like it had 10,000 miles on them. So thought I had the problem solved, drove it again, still was kind of doing the same thing a little bit. It wasn't really affecting anything, it was just like kind of an annoyance. It would just be like a little sputter, and I was like, I don't want to hurt something here. So I ended up searching around for a mechanic. We don't have any mechanics because we had just moved, and we had a really good mechanic in Iowa. They were amazing, but we haven't had that since we moved, so I haven't had a shop and I haven't had a place to take things to. So I ended up taking it into Meineke because I Googled it and they had like the best stars, the best ratings, or one of the best anyways for a bigger kind of mainstream shop like that, aside from obviously taking it to GM, which I expected would have been twice the money, right? So took it into them, they ran the codes, they said it needs O2s, it needs cats, and it needs a Y pipe. The one manifold was cracked, which I already knew that. I've been driving like that for a little bit. So I thought, well, whatever, so let's just do it all. So I ended up getting 2 brand new manifolds, 4 O2 sensors, mass airflow sensor, the Y pipe, and the cats. So they install these things. I'm waiting for them to get back to me. So after I'm like waiting for them, they say they'll have it done that day. They don't. The next day, it's like lunchtime. They hadn't called me, and I was like, I thought you guys would be done. So I end up calling them, and they're like, oh yeah, no, we put all this stuff in here, and now something's wrong. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, it's like just glugging fuel like crazy, and we think it's these O2 sensors we just put in there. It's like, well, they're OEM spec. So they're like, we gotta change O2. So I said, well, yeah, whatever ones you want then, whatever. So I think they went to GM and they got the, supposedly, they said, because they said that was gonna be the problem. So they went to GM, they got the OEM spec ones from GM, and they put those in there, and they said, okay, yep. They called me up and they're like, well, that fixed the fueling issue, sort of. But now when you get up to like maybe like 3,500 RPM or something like that, it starts to really sputter or whatever. And I was like, what? It's like, it wasn't doing that before. It was just like, you wouldn't even, honestly, the average person wouldn't even noticed it. It was like just barely a little thing. And then he's like, well, we float the cats, and he says the cats are plugged. I was like, how could the cats be plugged? It's been run for like freaking 10 minutes. So he's like, well, we think probably from all that fuel glugging in there. I was like, but they're brand new. So anyways, it was like, I was like, so what are we gonna do then? He's like, well, I don't know. He's like, I'm not really sure what the problem is. I was like, well, that's a pretty terrible answer. You told me this was the problem. That's why we replaced all these parts. So I drove it around a little bit, and I was like, I don't know, man. He's like, well, just drive it, I guess. I was like, so you don't know what it is? He's like, no. So I drove it one trip there, didn't even make it very far. I was like, I don't know how many. I think I might have put maybe 1,000 miles. I wasn't, I was just kind of taking it easy or whatever. It kind of was like, seemed sluggish and everything, and then I got to by Oklahoma City, and you guys saw on my Instagram there, I posted pictures, and those manifolds just got glowing, smoking red hot, like to the point where it was like, I mean, it was dark at night, and you couldn't drive it. It was like, it would keep running, but it just wouldn't move basically. And then you'd shut it off, you'd let it cool off, and like, you know, after like 20 minutes, you could drive it for like a couple miles again, and then whatever. So at that point, I ended up just towing it home, and then I never moved it again. I bought another truck, and that one was another whole mess of problems there, and it's been sitting ever since. So after I started having these other truck problems and I couldn't do what I needed to do here or whatever, I decided that I was going to try to deal with this one again. So that's what happened, and that's where we're at right now. So you saw there, as I had those manifolds glowing and whatever, that caused some issues here. So you saw I changed that spark plug wire. That was, I think, the bulk of the problem there. So I had taken it to the shop, they cut the cats out, they hauled the rear cat, and then it was back to normal. It was like running okay, but except for, like I said, it had the misfire. So I changed that number 8 spark plug wire after I after I did that, and yeah, that was kind of the bulk of it. So there's some other issues here, and I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so this whole Meineke debacle, replacing all those parts and everything, and I mean, well, that was a lot of stuff, right? And cats are super expensive, and then I had to pay for the O2s twice, and then on top of that, right after this happened, I drove it just a little bit, and then the gasket had blown out there for between the exhaust manifold and the Y pipe, and then they didn't weld it, they just clamped it in, so then it was leaking and whatever. So I took it back and they charged me another like almost $300 for that. So all in all, I think I was like over $4,000 into all of this just from Meineke, and it made it worse than ever. So that was in Meineke and Fort Smith. That was super frustrating, like I said, and then after that it was like undrivable. So once I cut the cats out there, you can kind of see it's got a really bad exhaust leak because the manifolds had gotten so hot after those cats were plugged, which obviously was the problem because I just drove this thing from Oklahoma to Montana and back. I'm back in like Sioux Falls, whatever it is, Iowa. So, and no problems. And I towed with it, so I towed 12,000 pounds behind me and I had no issues. So obviously that was the bulk of the issue, but now I still have this manifold leak issue and probably some other exhaust issues. And once in a while there's another code coming up here, and so it's still the NOx sensor code. So not sure what I'm gonna do about that yet, if I should change the NOx sensor. I'm wondering if where it is, if it got hot or if it got a wire hot or something like that. It could still be another plug wire. I only removed the one. I checked the one beside it and it was okay, and I thought, well, if it starts misfiring again, then I'll start going through them and changing more. But so I did buy a full set. I do have more. It's super hard to pull these things off with how they are or whatever, but so that's kind of where I'm at right now with it. Like I said, I had just put those plugs and wires on there, so whatever. But so then it costed me another $300 to get the cats cut off of it. At least the shop I went to, though, they're actually really good. They actually got my Duramax right now and they're looking at it, so hopefully they figure out something there, and hopefully it's simple and it's not a big expensive fix. But so that's kind of where I'm at with this thing. Like I said, it just look at the miles here. It's 432,440 miles on it now. So I mean, that's a lot for a gas. And so in the meantime here, I actually had bought an engine for it. It's only got like 80,000 miles on it, and I might just end up swapping it and keeping this one for a project because I don't want this thing to leave me stranded somewhere. But now I'm kind of terrified, like taking it to shops, because just like I haven't had any luck with any shops. And I mean, other than the shop in Creston, Iowa there, that was the only shop that actually knew what they were doing. Is like in forever, like since I don't even remember when. So the one thing I'm concerned about with getting it changed is like if they overlook something, you know, they miss something or whatever, and then it gets stuck somewhere. Another thing is the air conditioning. It seems like anytime air conditioning gets messed around with, is like it doesn't get as cold as it used to. Like even my Duramax there, it has a complete brand new everything on the air conditioning system, like brand new everything, and it's like sucks. It doesn't hardly blow cold at all. So I'm worried if they drain out the Freon in it and they try to top it back off, that it won't be the same again. And it's like perfect right now, so I would rather them not mess with that. So I'm hoping they could maybe engine swap it without that. So yeah, I don't know. I could still buy another truck, just get a few little things fixed on this one and then keep it as a spare if I was in a bind. That's an option, I guess. I don't know. Not really too sure. Sometimes I think maybe I should step up into like a 6.6 gasser or something like that, a little bit newer, a little more power, maybe a little bit better on fuel. I'm not really too sure, but like last night I was coming in and it was like crazy wind, but like this camper that I have on here drags a lot of wind, because if you can look behind me here, there's like a foot of space between the camper and the truck, because it's not designed for a short bed, and it hits the wheel wells before it goes all the way in. Or sorry, it's designed for a short bed, so it doesn't go all the way in. I could cut the camper and probably make it fit, but I was like, whatever, it hasn't been that big of an issue so far, but it does make it drag more wind, and it is fairly tall too, so I don't know. So yeah, I was going like 55, 60 there just to try to like not burn freaking tons of fuel last night, but it was doing pretty terrible. And I don't know, again, if that's maybe, it's not throwing any misfire codes, I don't think it's that, but like I said, I mean, it's just got a lot of miles on it, right? But it normally seems like when I was towing on the way there, it was running totally fine. It was pulling an overdrive, no problem or whatever, so not really too sure what to think there, but I am gonna have to, and maybe that's some of it, is the exhaust is leaking so bad now that it's not quite, because I'm getting some codes for fuel too there once in a while. I figure that's just because they cut the cats out now, but I mean, if it's leaking a bunch of exhaust, that's not helping things, and that's definitely gonna be hurting the power and things like that. So that's where I'm at with it. That's kind of the update with this truck. That's probably going to be the end of this video. Like I said, I think I've resolved the bulk of it right now, other than, so I don't know, I guess that's where I'm at, is just, do I go down the rabbit hole and just spend some more money to get the manifolds resealed and get the exhaust fixed or whatever? Probably be another, you know, few $100s or whatever, which isn't too big of a deal, I guess. Like you can kind of feel it's like kind of shaking here right now almost. But anyway, I noticed last night too, it was like the RPM, it would be like holding, and then all of a sudden every once in a while you'd feel just like a little, it was almost like kind of like a little shake in the truck, and I was like, what is going on? And I thought at first for a bit there it was like it was wind, but you know, and maybe it is just like I said, it could be that knock sensor, it could just be everything's just getting worn out. I mean, it's just got a lot of miles, so that's why I'm just saying I wonder if I just change the engine or whatever and just be done with it. But I had compression tested it before, and the compression was perfect or whatever, but I mean, it's just, that's a lot of miles. Like people can't believe it has that many miles on it. So another annoyance that nobody can seem to figure out is, I thought it was a rear main seal leaking. Both times they had the transmission out of it, they said it's not the rear main seal, so they never changed it, even though I told them to. So I reached around the back of the valve covers, and it's not leaking there. So I don't really know where it's coming from. The oil pressure sensor's been changed already, so unless that went bad again or something like that. But so it's just enough to be an annoyance. So yeah, so that's kind of, like I said, that's kind of where I'm at for this truck or whatever. The body is actually like this, about the same as when I bought it. It doesn't have any rust. There's a little bit of surface rust on the frame. It's nothing, just normal, honestly. Probably if I cleaned it up and painted it, it'd probably last forever. So I mean, so if I put another engine in this thing, you know, if I got another, if that one has 80,000 miles and it wasn't even anywhere near this one, I mean, you know, if that was like another 300,000 miles, that would last me quite a while. And maybe it would pick up a little fuel mileage. I almost want to get it tuned, because I know people that know how to tune these things really well. They run pretty rich from the factory, so it would probably pick up a little bit of fuel mileage and gain a little bit of power. So something to think about. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna get on the road here, but I wanted to kind of update you where this thing was at and kind of show you what I've been kind of dealing with here. I'm glad it's running okay enough again to be using it, because I was kind of in a pickle this last month here. I couldn't take the other truck very far because I was scared about it leaving me stranded somewhere. It just has no power and things like that. So yeah, we're gonna hopefully get that one fixed and maybe send it up the road, and then I can decide what to do from there. So thanks for watching again, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, share me around on social media. TK's Garage 405 on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.